What is up, people? So in this video, we're going to hack a forums website by making use of cross-site scripting chained with catch poisoning. Now, this is actually a retired Hack the Box challenge called Felonious Forms, and it is one of my most favorite challenges to ever exist. I loved this challenge so much when I solved it for the first time, and I'd say it's a medium difficulty challenge. It's not very easy, but it's not very hard as well. So I'll leave the link to the challenge in the description below. So if you guys are interested, go ahead and check it out. Without further ado, let's get started and let's start hacking. All right, so this is the challenge. As you can see, it has a very good rating of 4.8 out of 5, which is great. I have started the instance, and this is the web app that we are going to exploit. You can see it's named as Felonious Forums. Beyond justice, it's probably just trying to imitate many of those hacker forums on the internet. So in order to log into this forums website, you have to create an account. Let me go ahead and choose a username and choose a password. Click on sign up. User registered successfully. Now I am just going to go ahead and log in to my account. Now, this is not a regular Hack the Box machine. It's a challenge, which means you're not connected to the Hack the Box network in order to exploit it. This IP address right here, it's on the internet. It's not on the Hack the Box private network. So one thing to note here is that there is no privilege escalation. There is no foothold or anything like that. The task is to just find the flag by exploiting this website in whatever way is possible. Anyway, so this is the forums website. You can see there are announcements, hacking, and then leaks. Awesome. So if I open one of the posts, yeah, it just looks like any other hacker forums out there. We also have the option to download the source code of this web app. So I'm going to go ahead, click on download files. I'll go to HTB and I'm gonna download it to my Felonious Forums folder that I've created. And I'm now gonna go ahead and unzip it. The password is, as mentioned here, HackTheBox. So I'm gonna copy that, paste it here, and there you go. Now we have the source code. So I'm gonna go ahead and open this up in VS Code. And there you go. This is the source code of the web app. So first of all, we see a flag.txt. Obviously, this is not the real flag. It's just a dummy flag, as it says, fake flag for testing. And then there's a Docker file, which is worth checking out. So if you try to understand what it is doing here, let me enable word wrap real quick. So it's first trying to install the packages with apt get update. And then it's creating a new directory called app. Changing the work directory to app, copy the challenge, which is the source code files, to this working directory. And then it's copying the flag.txt to /flag.txt. And then it's exposing the port 1337, which is where the web app is going to be hosted. And it's also copying the supervisor configuration, which is this, to the working directory. And looking at this configuration doesn't immediately give any red flags. It looks normal. So coming back to the Docker file, it's exposing the port 1337, and then it's starting the Node.js application. Cool. And then coming to the challenge directory, which is where the actual source code is present, you can see a bot.js. Not sure what this is about. We'll find out soon. And then there's a database.js, there's index.js. And then in the routes, there is another index.js, which basically defines the different routes of this web app and also defines the logic on how to handle these routes. Great. So I'll come back to the web app itself and look for different options here that we can potentially exploit to take control of the website. So there's an option where you can actually create a new thread on this website. So you can like give a thread title, for example, test, and then it looks like this supports Markdown. So if I just type in something here, click on preview post, there you go. It is actually converted into HTML. So basically what's happening in the backend is that the Markdown is being converted to the HTML so that it can be displayed on the web app. Awesome. So the first thing that comes into my mind as soon as I see this feature of the Markdown being converted into actual HTML to be displayed on the web app is what if we are able to achieve XSS on the web app. XSS stands for cross-site scripting, and it is when an attacker is able to inject some JavaScript into the web app, and by doing so he will be able to execute malicious JavaScript code on the client side of the users of the website. In other words, on the browsers of the users that are using this particular web app. And with this, the attacker will be able to do a lot of stuff like stealing the session cookies of the users, etc, etc. So if I open my cookie editor extension, there is one cookie that is named as session, and this actually looks like a JSON web token, short for JWT token. So if I go to jwt.io to cross check it, and if I paste this value over here, it is indeed a JWT token. You can see the algorithm is HS256, type is JWT, and the payload data, you can see the user ID, the username, the reputation, credits, role, avatar, joined, and I don't know what that is about, but yeah, you get the point. So this is basically the token of the user. So if an attacker has access to this particular value, which is nothing but the session token, he can basically log in as a user without having to know the password, or he can even bypass the two-factor authentication. So one of the ways we can steal this session token of the users is by making use of cross-site scripting, as I just said. So let's go back to the source code to see if that is possible in any way. So this is the endpoint that is responsible for previewing the thread. It's a post request to /threads/preview. It takes in an auth middleware, a route catch seconds, which we don't know what it does yet, but we will figure it out later. So it's basically taking the title, content, category ID. So it's first getting category ID with get category by ID function call, and then it says save content is equal to make HTML filter input of content. So this function looks like some kind of like a sanitization mechanism that is used to sanitize the user input. So let's go ahead and see what it does. So it's in the helper/md helper file. So let me go there, helpers mdhelper.js. This is the file, and this is the function. Filter input is going to take a user input, and it's basically using DOM_purify.sanitize function. It's passing in the user input, and the only allowed tags here are strong, em, image, as, ul, ol, and lis. Any HTML tag that is not in this list is going to be just sanitized or removed completely. So that's what the filter input function is doing. So let's come back to index.js here. And if you look closely here, the order in which this save content is being generated is first, it is making a call to filter input of content. This content is nothing but the content of the post. In other words, when you click on new thread, so whatever you type in this text box over here, which is the input in markdown format, is being passed as the content parameter here. So this content is in markdown format. So what it is essentially doing is it's sanitizing the markdown content. But if you just go ahead and give a quick search to DOM purify, it's an npm module, I guess. So what it basically does is it's an XSS sanitizer for HTML. Nowhere does it say that it supports markdown, right? But it looks like in the code, in this particular line, the programmer made a small mistake because he is passing the markdown value, the markdown content, as the input to the filter input function. The filter input function is basically going to make use of DOM_purify.sanitize, which expects the input to be in HTML. So it's going to take the HTML input, it's going to sanitize the input, remove all the tags that are not allowed, and it's going to give you a sanitized value that is safe to be rendered on the web app. But that is not the case here. This is the markdown value. Only once the DOM_purify.sanitize function is used to create sanitized output, that particular sanitized output that is given by DOM_purify is again passed to a function called make_html. Now, I don't know what this does, so let's go ahead and check out what it does. It's from helper/mdhelper once again, so I'm going to go back to that file And here's the function make HTML. So this function is basically converting the markdown content into HTML by making use of a npm module called showdown. So if I just go ahead and Google npm showdown, this is the npm module. And as you can see, it says showdown is a JavaScript markdown to HTML converter based on the original works by John Gruber. So that is what it's doing. So it's evident to me that this particular statement is incorrect or it's not safe. So I'm just gonna say wrong statement, wrong way of doing this. But the correct way of doing this would be something like this. First, you would pass the markdown content into the make HTML function to convert the markdown into HTML. So it would be something like make HTML of content. So once you converted the markdown content into HTML, the next thing that you do is to make use of the filter input function call to sanitize the generated HTML using DOM purify. So here you would say filter input. So this is the correct statement, the correct way and the secure way of sanitizing the HTML content. We have to sanitize it once it is converted from markdown to HTML. So we are going to go ahead and try to achieve an XSS over here. I'm going to go back and create a new thread, call it exploit. And in the content, I'm going to write some markdown content and try to come up with a payload to achieve an XSS. So in markdown syntax, the way you can embed an image is by making use of an exclamation and then square braces. Inside this would be the alt text, just test. And then in the parentheses, you would give the URL to the image to embed. For example, let's go ahead, go puppy images. I'm gonna just grab an image of a really cute puppy. Open image, new tab. I'm gonna grab this and I will paste the link over here. So if I go ahead and click on preview post, there you go. You can see the image is now embedded. So if I inspect this, you can see here there is an image tag with the src of the URL that we have inputted. So in order to include some JavaScript into this image tag, we can do something like this. I'll click on exit preview. And over here, if you have noticed, everything that is inside these parentheses is going to go into the src attribute of the image tag. So I will first escape the src attribute by typing in or by putting in a closed double quote like this. So now the src attribute is closed. And after this, I'm going to give a space and I'm going to start an on error attribute, which basically takes in the JavaScript to be executed if there exists an error while trying to fetch the image. So in this case, the src attribute is just empty. So it is definitely going to result in an error, and hence this on error attribute is going to be triggered. And inside this on error attribute, I can go ahead and give the JavaScript that I want to execute if in case the error happens or occurs. So in here, I'm just going to make a small alert call and I'm going to say alert XSS confirmed. So just to make sure if we are able to get the XSS. Now if I go ahead and preview the post, so that doesn't work. Let me go ahead and inspect the element to see why it doesn't work. Okay, for some reason this is not converted into an image tag. It still exists as markdown format. I'm not sure why that is. Maybe I'll just go ahead and remove the space here after the double quote and on error. Let's see now if that works. Okay, so now it is actually converted into an image tag, but it is not what we intended it to be. The on error attribute is completely removed. I'm not sure why. Let's go ahead and try to figure out why that is. I think I might need to remove the double quote over here because everything inside these parentheses is going to be treated as an src attribute, and it's going to automatically add in the opening double quote and closing double quote. The opening double quote we have already escaped. So in order to escape the closing double quote, we have to make sure that there is no double quote after the alert statement. So let's see if that works. No, it doesn't work again. Okay, so I think I figured out why this doesn't work. You see, everything inside these parentheses is going to be considered as a URL, and a URL cannot have spaces, but there exists a space over here. So we have to eliminate it, and we can do it by just converting the space into its URL encoded format, which is just mod 20. Hopefully this works. Let me go click on preview post. And there you go, XSS confirmed. Awesome. So we are now able to achieve XSS on this page right here. But how do we make use of this XSS vulnerability to capture the flag? So I'm going to go back to my VS Code and search for flag to see where the flag is stored. So you can see in bot.js, it's taking the flag from /flag.txt, which is where the original flag exists. And it is, you can see, setting the flag inside the JWT token. So this line you can see is signing a JWT token with the username moderator, user role is moderator, and then it's adding another parameter called flag where it is setting the actual flag. So we need to find a way to exploit this. So I'm just going to copy this function name, which is visit post, and I'm going to search it in my project to see where it is used. It is used in bot.js, which is where it is actually defined. And then it's also used in index.js. So I'm going to go there, and inside the /API/report endpoint, this function is being used. So let's go ahead and check out what this endpoint is all about. So I'm going to go back to my Felonious forums, and there is a thread here that says post report guideline. If you see a post that goes against our rules, please report them. So you can basically report a post. There is an option here to report it. If you click on report, it says reporting this port, please wait. So I'm just going to capture this with verbsuit to see what it's actually doing. Click on report. And there you go. It is actually sending a post request to /API/report. with the parameter post ID. So this endpoint is going to make this particular logic to execute. So what it's basically doing is when you report a post, it's triggering a bot to visit that post by passing the post ID to it. So this visit post, as we just saw, is taking the post ID, and what it's doing is it's making use of Puppeteer, which is basically like Selenium. It's going to open up a browser. It's basically used for browser automation. So what this is going to do is it's just going to launch a browser for the bot to use in the backend, and it's creating a JWT token by signing these parameters. It's creating the session cookie by setting the JWT as the value, and then it's going to http://localhost:1337, which is where the web app is running, /report/ followed by the report ID that, or the post ID, sorry, that we are passing in. And it's basically waiting for 5 seconds. And that's it. It's just closing the browser. So what we understand from this code is that whenever you report a thread or a post, it's going to trigger the bot to go to this particular URL, which contains the post ID that we are passing in as the parameter. And you can see that this input that we are giving is not being properly sanitized. It is directly being appended to this URL. We actually control the URL that this bot is opening in its browser. So we just found a way to make the bot go to a URL that we want it to go to. In this case, we want it to go to the URL where the XSS is active. So in that way, when the bot goes to this URL where the XSS is active, we will be able to steal its session cookie. And in that session cookie, we know that there exists the flag, right? So let's go ahead and write the XSS payload to be able to steal the session cookie. So the JavaScript that we may want to embed into the web page to steal the session token would be something like this. We can make use of window.location.href equal to followed by like a URL where we can send the request. Now, since this challenge is being run on the internet and not on the HackTheBox private network, we would need a public facing URL, a URL that can be accessed from the whole internet, right? So we'll be making use of ngrok for that. So first of all, I'll just create a HTTP server with Python on port 8000. And then I'll create an ngrok HTTP tunnel ngrok http 8000. So this is going to give me a public facing URL like this, which is basically going to tunnel the traffic to my local host on port 8000. It is, yeah, 8000. So I can go ahead and make a request to this particular URL right here, and I'll give in a parameter called data equal to, and then I'll append document.cookie, which is going to contain the actual session cookie or the session token of the bot. This would be the payload that we can use to steal the session cookie of the bot. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new thread. I will create an image using markdown syntax, test image, and for the URL, I'll say on error equal to followed by the payload that I'm using here, which is this. And yeah, that should be it. So if I just go ahead and click on preview post, we got an ngrok error. That is a good sign, because now we know that it is, this web page is actually sending the request to our ngrok URL. So if I come back to my terminal, you can see that I got a GET request with the data parameter equal to the session token or the session cookie. Now, since this XSS is executed on my browser, this session token belongs to me. So yeah, it basically means we are able to steal session tokens of the users by executing malicious JavaScript on their browser by making use of the XSS vulnerability that we just found. So we can go ahead and inject this post ID parameter. So what we can do is, if I go back to the source code, you can see this is the endpoint to preview the post. So it's /threads/preview. But if you go to the bot.js, the bot is going to this particular URL appended with the post ID. So we have to come back one path so that we escape the /report. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say .. to come back one level, and then I can go to /threads/preview followed by the post ID as the parameter. Now we don't know the post ID for our XSS thread yet. So let's go ahead and find that out. I'm going to create a new thread here. I'll use the same payload. So I'm going to intercept this with burp to try to figure out our post ID. So if I click on preview post, so you can see this is the request that it is sending, /threads/preview followed by the post ID. So this is the post ID of our XSS post. So I'm just going to copy it. I'll forward this request and I'll come back to repeater, and here I'll paste in the post ID. If I click on send and listen for the connections, it doesn't look like we got any new connections. These are all my session tokens, not the bots. Let me actually clear this out and start a fresh HTTP server to avoid all the confusions. And let me send this again. It says report received successfully, but we did not receive any request on our HTTP server. And that tells us that our XSS did not get executed on the bot's browser. So if I come back to the source code, you can see there is a route cache.catch seconds function, and the values 30 and a catch key are passed as the input parameters to this function call. Now I do not know what this route cache is. So if I just search for it, it's imported. It looks like it's an npm module called route cache. So I'm just gonna go ahead and quickly Google this npm route cache. So it looks like this is a middleware for route caching with a given TTL. So if I scroll down in the documentation, you can see they have used a similar function call that is used in our code, which is route cache.catch seconds. So here they have used it. You can see route cache.catch seconds. And in the comments, they have explained that this is going to cache the route for 20 seconds. So what this basically means is that it's going to save the response in a cache for 20 seconds. So after 20 seconds, this response is going to be expired. And in our case, they are setting the cache for 30 seconds, and they're also passing in the cache key. In the documentation, they say that you can set a custom key by passing a second argument to cache seconds. So this is going to be the custom cache key. So in our case, let's check out what this cache key is. There you go. This is where the cache key is defined. It's basically the host value that is in the header, the request header, and then the request.url, and then the X forwarded for attribute in the request header, which is nothing but the IP address of the client. So now it makes sense why our XSS failed to execute on the bot's browser. That is because the preview page which contains our XSS is being cached with a custom cache key. So when we inject the malicious JavaScript into our post and preview it by making a call to /threads.preview, what it's basically doing is it's creating a cache which is valid for 30 seconds and it can be only accessed with this cache key. So in order for others or other users, which also includes the bot, to be able to view this XSS included page that is created by us, it has to have the same cache key. And only if it does, only then our XSS web page will be shown to them or will be served to them from the cache. Now, if you come back to the cache key again, you can see that all the parameters that constitute this cache key are adjustable, which means we can modify them and control them. Is the host parameter in the header, and then the X forwarded for, which is nothing but the IP address, and the request URL. And all these three parameters can be modified by us without any issue. So we can basically poison the cache to store our XSS included web page, our XSS included response that contains the malicious JavaScript code which will steal the session token of the users. So in order to make this happen, I'll just come back to my burp suite. And before clicking on preview post, I'm gonna intercept this request with burp because we have to make changes to the header so that we create a cache key that is valid for the bot as well. So I'm gonna click on preview post, and this is the request that we got. So over here, I need to change the host to the bot's host, and from bot.js it is very clear that the host of the bot is 127.0.0.1.1337. So I'm just going to copy that and change the host value to this. And the next parameter that we need in order to create the cache key is the request.url, which we don't have to change because this is the URL that we are sending our bot to. So we don't have to change this as well. But I'm just gonna copy this because we'll be needing it later while sending the request to the report endpoint. So I'll just copy and paste it in my text editor. And the third parameter that we need is X forwarded for, which is basically the IP address. So in this particular request, there is no parameter for X forwarded for. So I'm just gonna create a new one, and it's going to be the IP address of the bot, which is nothing but 127.0.0.1 because the bot is running locally on the backend. So I think that should be it. So I'm just making sure that my HTTP server is up and running, and also the ngrok. Perfect. So I'm gonna go ahead and click on forward. And once I click on forward, I only have 30 seconds to send this particular request, which is to the API/reports, because we know that the cache is going to expire in 30 seconds. So we have to be real quick here. So let's go. I'm gonna click on forward, and I'll turn off the intercept, come back to repeater, and the URL that we want the bot to go is this particular one. Click on send again, and fingers crossed, we should be now receiving a request to our HTTP server. Let's see, let's wait for the response. Okay, I think I know why this is not responding. That is because I've accidentally stopped the instance and created a new instance, so the IP address on the port changed. So I'll have to do this again. I'll just close this one, and I will go ahead and report a post. There you go. This is the valid request now. I'll send this to repeater, and the post ID would be this particular thing. Don't forget the .. at the beginning. Click on send, and we'll wait for the response now. We got a response, but we did not get a request to our HTTP server. That is because the cache probably expired. It's been more than 30 seconds. So yeah, we'll have to do that again. So I'm gonna have to create a new thread again and do this all over again. So let me do that. Create a new thread. I'll name it as XSS exploit. The payload on error equal to, followed by the payload. I'll make sure to intercept this with burp, proxy intercept on. Click on preview post. There you go. So I'll just send it to repeater in case I might have to do it again. So let me go ahead and send it and quickly go back to the other endpoint, send it again. And let's wait for a request on our HTTP server. Oh, you know what? I forgot to edit the request header. So this is going to be 127.0.0.1 colon 1337. I also need to add the X forwarded 4 header and set this to 127.0.0.1. And yeah, let's try that again. I'm gonna send this, and then I'm going to send the request to API/report with the valid URL, and let's see if that works. Okay, still no luck. The location. So this is a valid XSS, and the host is valid. X forwarded 4 is valid. Oh, there you go. The post ID changed because this is a new post, and that's why it failed. So I'm gonna do it again. Make sure that the post IDs are same for both these requests. So let's try it again. We only have to get it right once. So I'll create the XSS, click on send, and then send the request to the API report endpoint. And there we go. We got a request to our HTTP server via ngrok. And this contains a session token like this. So I'll just copy it, go back, turn off the intercept. I'll go to jwt.io and paste it here. And would you look at that? This is the session cookie of the bot. And in the payload, you can see the flag. This is the flag. So this means we are successfully able to exploit our XSS by chaining it with cache poisoning. So I know this might be a little complicated to understand. And honestly, it is. It is a little complicated attack, but it is really, really fun to solve this challenge. It's, as I said, one of my most favorite challenges that I've ever done on HackTheBox. All right, so that'll be all for this video. Hope you liked it. Hope you learned something new. If you did like this video, please do not forget to leave a thumbs up below and also leave a comment in the comment section. If you're not yet a subscriber, please do hit that subscribe button and also turn on the bell icon to receive instant updates from my channel. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, cheers.